Please welcome to the stage National Geographic Explorer and co-founder and CEO of Untamed Planet, Malaika Vaz, anthropologist, earth and climate defender, Institute of Indigenous Memory and Science, Taily Terena, and Institute Amazonia President Marcelo Thomé.
All right, thank you for being here with us today. So as we look ahead to COP30, there's never been a better time to rethink our approach to sustainable development in the Amazon and across vulnerable ecosystems. And the Amazon isn't just home to everyone on our planet in a sense, but it's also home in a very integral way to over 30 million people who depend on its resources and who are actively building bold and innovative solutions to protect its future. This is not just about changing the way that we think about things and having Indigenous communities have a seat at the table, but really about having Indigenous communities building the blueprint for the future. And we've got two incredible people to tell us about how that's being done in the Amazon today. So Taily, I'm going to begin with you. We see that even today, we still have big, important development decisions being made without Indigenous communities in the room. In your experience, what changes when you actually have Indigenous communities leading the conversation?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. Thank you everyone for being here and listening to us. I'm really appreciated this time to be in this room with a lot of people thinking and sharing what the earth needs. And for me, to be Indigenous peoples and to be on the part of this process is to help on the solutions that the planet needs. So bring our knowledge to the table, bring our science, is to think in other solutions possible for our planet. We know the system as it is, and we know that it's not working. So we need to think about other solutions, other perspectives possible for the planet. I think that we need to change the core of the discussion. What is development? What is development basis? It's not about profit. It's about living well, like respecting nature. And from our perspective, we have a really famous term called "bem viver," like the living being of our peoples. But it's not only about humanity. It's about all the livings that are here together. So when we do our practices, we do that thinking about all the living beings that are here, about all the generations, thinking ourselves as bridges. So when we do take some action, remember of our ancestors. So once they told me okay, but I don't think my ancestors was good. Maybe they created a war. But as I've taught by my mom, we are human beings. We have flaws. We commit mistakes, but we also commit good things. So let's take that and bring to the table, bring what you have from unique as individuals, because everyone here is important for this collective process. And this is what our knowledge is based on. Everybody has an important thing to contribute to the solutions that the planet needs.
I love it. So well said. Earlier you were telling me about how very often Indigenous communities have to navigate living between two worlds, one which is in the past and one which is in the present. What does development mean to you in that context?
So develop for me, it's to have this balance between those two things, not forgetting our past, our traditions as a youth, especially being an Indigenous youth. We have the youth collective in our community that we say you have to know how to navigate in those two things, because ancestry is what is moving us forward. You guys saw it there in the video. This is something that I learned inside my home. It's our worldviews as Terena, is the way that we walk in this planet. It's remembering of what the ancestors did. So develop for us is respecting Mother Nature, have this comfort that I know people like comfort in our daily lives, quality, but also remembering that all those things is not based on profit, it's not based on things, but also in the air that you breathe, the water that you drink, the land that you put your feet on it. those things is what it's really developed me in the quality way.
Thank you. And Marcelo, coming to you, you have been doing incredible work uniting industry to figure out ways to promote sustainable development in the Amazon. Why did you feel there was a need for a new model, and what does that change look like to you now?
Thank you for your question. And I brought my notes, of course. It's a new agenda even for the businessmen in Brazil. The traditional development model in the Amazon often sees the forest as an obstacle to progress, not as part of the solution. Amazonia Plus 21 was created to prove that economic growth and conservation can go hand in hand. But this requires a shift in mindset. Our focus is connecting businesses, investors, and communities in projects that value biodiversity and generate income while preserving the ecosystem. The key change we are pushing for is a transition from a extractive economy to a bio-innovation economy, where a standing forest is worth more than a cleared one. This includes everything from sustainable supply chains for social biodiversity products to investments in science and technology applied to conservation.
I love that. I'm going to come back to you about ways that you've seen that play out. But coming back to you, Taily, you've been leading a really inspiring movement with Indigenous women across Brazil, fighting back against the systems that have served to oppress and silence and even have different forms of violence afflicted towards Indigenous communities. What does it mean to have Indigenous women leading the charge, and what does success look like when that happens?
So for many years, it was told this fake news that women are weak because of the emotions that we care, because we need to be at home taking care of our families. But I learned with my elders that this is the most important thing that we have and the most powerful thing that we have as women, because we think about the collectiveness, we think about our family, we think about our community. So bringing women to the table is like to bring the collectiveness. That is what it matters. Because right now, the reality in our communities is that we are facing a lot of environmental violence. It's not only that they're violating our bodies with man camps that goes in our city, with agribusiness industry that is poisoning our water, or even illegal mining that is contaminating the river that kids will swim and eat, have the food there. But the environmental violence goes also through that. So remembering us that our body as women is really power. Don't let the colonizer say that we are weak for that. Get this straight from your own wombs. And I say to people that it is our choice of all women to decide if you want or not to have kids. But you have to remember, as a collectiveness, as global citizens, as a big family, we have children that maybe I didn't give birth to them, but I'm responsible to take care of them, to make sure that the rivers that I know from Pantanal will also be possible for them to swim and fish and eat all the food from there. So this is the important thing that we have as women. Thinking about the collective. Care is not a weakness, it's power.
Wow. So well said. And honestly, I think that this is an approach that is more relevant than ever before, not just in parts of South America, but here in the United States as well. Women hold incredible power, and you are an example of that. So thank you for sharing that. Marcelo, coming to the work that you do, when we think about big extractive industry in remote parts of the world, we're always thinking about destruction. We're thinking about, neocolonialism to some extent. What does it mean to have industry come into the Amazon in a way that is respectful of communities, of ecosystems? And could you give me some examples of what that success looks like?
An example that inspires me is Energisa's project, a distribution company operating in the Amazon, which implemented the solar energy in riverside communities. They replaced expensive and polluting diesel generators with solar microgrids, reducing emissions and create local jobs, maintenance, and energy management. Another important advancement is the creation of the Sustainable Investment Facility, a blended finance strategy led by the Amazon Plus 21 Institute and 8 other partners who made catalytic contributions to boost the Amazon's green economy. I would also like to mention the Morar Amazônico project, a partnership between Caixa, is the Brazil's largest public bank, and the Institute to develop a new engineered timber-based housing value chain. We are creating diverse investment opportunities in projects for private capital to support new green economies in the Amazon. Progress lies precisely in this shift. Before, companies saw the Amazon as a cost. Today, the most visionaries see it as an ally for innovation and climate resilience and an investment opportunity.
Thank you. You know, both of you from this conversation have given me so much to think about in terms of how do we rethink this dichotomy between development and conservation, and how do we actually bring these incredibly important forces together. As we now begin to close the session, I'd love to give the floor to our friend who's a true champion of Indigenous rights, Brazil's first Minister of Indigenous Peoples, Minister Sonia Guajajara. We'd love to have your reflections on today's conversation and hear about what you think is most important as we go forward.
Olá, boa tarde a todas, a todos, a todos. Obrigada, Malaika. Boa tarde, Taily, Marcelo. Bom, mais do que falar em desenvolvimento, precisamos falar em envolvimento. Envolver os povos indígenas nas decisões, nas soluções e na construção de um futuro em que a natureza não seja vista mais como um obstáculo, mas sim como a base de tudo.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Very nice to be here today. Thank you, Malaika. Thank you, Taily, Marcelo. Well, I would like to tell you that more than talking about development, we must talk about involvement, involving indigenous peoples in decision-making, in solutions, in building a future where nature is not an obstacle, but the foundation of everything.
O verdadeiro progresso nasce do envolvimento coletivo. Não há solução duradoura para a crise climática sem a liderança de povos indígenas, que há gerações protegem a floresta com a sabedoria e com muita resistência.
True progress comes from collective involvement, and there can be no lasting solution to the climate crisis without the leadership of indigenous peoples who have protected the forest for generations.
Nós não queremos um modelo de desenvolvimento que exclui e destrói, mas sim um caminho de envolvimento, onde empresas, governos e comunidades caminhem juntos com respeito, escuta e reciprocidade.
We do not want a development model that excludes and destroys, but a path of involvement where companies, governments, and communities walk together with respect, listening, and reciprocity.
Pois o desenvolvimento na Amazônia só será possível com a liderança dos povos indígenas, que vivem há milênios de anos em equilíbrio com a natureza. É hora de transformar essa sabedoria ancestral em um modelo global.
Sustainable development in the Amazon will only be possible with the leadership of indigenous peoples who have lived in balance with nature for millennia. It is time now to turn this wisdom into public policy on a global level. So we wish that our indigenous model becomes the real model for the new world.
Pois a solução está abaixo das copas das árvores, nas mãos das pessoas que vivem e protegem os territórios.
Because the solution is in the hands of the people that live under the trees, that take care of the nature.
Parabéns a Taily Terena pelo merecido reconhecimento recebido aqui hoje pelo Global Citizen.
Congratulations, Taily Terena, for your being recognized by Global Citizen and all these wonderful people in the room.
E obrigada, Global Citizen, aqui pelo convite, pela oportunidade, né, para a participação nesse importante evento.
And thank you very much, Global Citizen, to be here again with you in this important event that is bringing the attention to Brazil and the Amazon rainforest.
Muito obrigada.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your incredible words. I feel like we're surrounded by so much hope and inspiration in this room. Truly makes me feel very hopeful as we go towards COP30. Now, we have a very exciting message from the Vice President of Colombia, but before that, I'd like you to give a massive round of applause to our incredible speakers today.